Alright, welcome to my channel. My name is Shiranda and I'm a second grade teacher here in South Carolina. And just as promised, I know in my previous video I told you I would be sharing some books that I'm either going to be displaying or reading to my class for Black History Month. And so as promised, I'm going to share 5 books that I will be using for the month of February. Also, if you haven't checked out my last video, what are you doing? So let's jump right into it. Before I get started, if you are new here, welcome to my channel. If you are returning, how you doing? So let's get into this first book because I don't want this to be too long. First book that I've already read, my kids love, and it was actually a reading counts test. So in some of the books that we read, they're able to take a quiz on them to meet their reading counts goal. We call them reading counts. Some people call them AR tests, but same thing, same principle. And so the first book that we loved was Let the Children March. We absolutely love this book. This is by Monica Clark Robinson, illustrated by Frank Morrison. And it's basically about how during civil rights movement and things like that, the children actually had a moment in history where they were marching for their freedom just as well as their parents. And so I was able to share with my students the experiences of kids that were their age and a little bit older and how they were able to overcome and to help in the movement. Because a lot of the people that we've been talking about during our Black History Moments every day during social studies are adults. We don't really see them, or I don't really talk about them as much as children. And so this book did a wonderful job explaining in simple terms how this real event impacted the movement and actually helped to help the movement. And there were pictures in here that we really looked at. My kids really liked the pictures, and I don't know, it was just beautifully written. And one of the things that I wanted to point out that my kids thought were very interesting that I pointed out to them was this picture here. And hopefully nothing bad happens because I'm showing the book, but this part right here. And this is just a picture of kids being sprayed by water hoses. And I know a lot of the times kids think that being sprayed by water is fun, but we talked about how significant this moment is because these weren't just a water park type of hose. These were hose that were used to put out a fire, and they were using them on kids. So we talked about how the pressure on these kind of hose were a lot harder and they hurt. And people could get hurt from being sprayed by these. And so we talked about this. And then also in this same page, there's like 2 dogs pulling at 2 different kids in their clothes. And we talked about how, what would be the reason why they would be so upset at kids walking and marching. And so I think that this was a beautiful book because on Martin Luther King Day, or the day after, because we had it off, we actually spent that whole week when we came back from Martin Luther King Day just talking about Martin Luther King and the movement that he was a part of. And we talked about words like nonviolent, peaceful. And so I'm very happy that my kids understand those words about what nonviolent means, because when we were reading this book, we were talking about how these kids were being nonviolent and how people who were against them were being very violent to them. We talked about what it would be like if they had to do the same thing. And I want them to, and this book helped me to help them realize that these kids, and at the end, and then we'll move on to the next book, I share with them, this was a specific message to my Black kids, that these kids, these adults in the civil rights movement and things, they were not, I don't believe that they were just fighting for themselves. They were also fighting for people that would come after them, like me and like you. And so I told my kids, I was like, they fought for you too, so that we could all be here together, because they weren't just thinking about themselves, and they knew that if they didn't take care of it then we would have to deal with it now. And of course, in this day and age, we still have issues with racism and things like that. But in comparison to back then, I will admit that we are a lot further than where our ancestors and people that came before us used to be. So I would definitely recommend this a 10 out of 10. The second book I haven't read yet, but I think that this is such a remarkable book, and it's really going to hone in on the misconception and the gap that my students have about slavery and about how enslaved people were treated during that time. And also, this is a reminder to me, and also for us to see what it was like to be enslaved, and also what it was like to try to escape to be free, and what it was like for the free people who escaped, what it was like for their families who were left behind. And so this next book is called The Bell Rang by James Ransom. I think I'm saying his name right. I got this one along with Let the Children March from Madona's Shoes last year. Or actually 2 years ago. I did a project specifically for diverse text, and so these were two of the books that I got from that donor's shoes. But this is Let the Bell Ring, and this book is set during slavery time, or the era of slavery, and this is told through the perspective of a little girl who just takes us through her day and all the things that she does each day. The bell rings. So every day the bell rings for her and all of the other enslaved people. And when that bell rings, that's how she knows it's time for all her and her family to get up, get ready to go work out in the fields. And then she, because she's little, she goes to elsewhere with the rest of the kids, and they just play and things like that until their parents get off. And she does this every day. So it says Monday, the bell rings, Tuesday, the bell rings, and it just lists all the things that they do together. So one of the things that is repetitive is, it says Monday, the bell rings, and no sun in the sky, daddy gathers wood, mama cooks, we eat. It says it every single day. But then it goes into how on Wednesday, her older brother gives her a doll, and he is actually the first person to kiss her that day. And then he tells her goodbye. And so then by Thursday, her mom is crying. They're all crying because Ben has left. And the overseer is coming in trying to figure out where Ben went, because they know that he's gone and they can't find him. And so this little girl, she's very worried about her brother, and while she misses him, she also is torn because she knows that where he's going, he could possibly be free and have a better opportunity at having a slightly better life somewhere else. And so they worry about him every day, and they even get more worried when two of the boys that he escaped with end up getting caught. And her brother is still out there somewhere. She doesn't know where he is. So this is a beautiful book that shows the family that was left behind, how they're feeling, and the things that they may have to endure because their family member decided to escape. But on the flip side, trying to find some ounce within yourself to be happy and be hopeful and optimistic that the person, your loved one, is going to escape and make it to freedom and make it to destination. So hopefully maybe they can either come back and get you, maybe it will give you some strength to maybe escape as well. And I think that I'm definitely going to read this book this week. This is my first time actually looking at it, but I'm definitely going to read this to them this week. I think that this would be a great conversation just to talk about how why people did not want to escape and run. And we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but not really, because I know that kids are going to ask, well, why didn't a lot more people escape? And I've kind of mentioned to them that it was very dangerous for people to escape, but some people were willing to take that risk. And so this is just another opportunity for us to talk about being an enslaved person and being torn between wanting to run and escape and hopefully make it to freedom versus just staying and just struggling through it. So I think that this is going to be a wonderful book, and I'm actually really excited to read this one. And this one's called The Bell Rang. Alright, so the next 3 books that I'm going to show you are all from Target. I got them last week. One of them I'm giving away to a friend who I'm going to mail it to her. And then the other 2 I'm going to keep for myself, only because it was buy 2 get 1 free. So I ended up getting one of these books free. I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to talk about each one. So the first one is Change Things by Amanda Gorman. The second one is I Believe I Can by Grace Byers. Looks like this. And then the third one is I Promise by LeBron James. So we're going to get into Change Things first. So beautiful book, and I'm actually partially is because of the author Amanda Gorman. So she was actually the poet for the inaugural ceremony for Joe Biden, and she was the youngest poet, and she was Black, and so she is the author of this book, Change Things. And really, this book just talks about being a change and how we all want change, but realizing that change starts from within, and we can be the voice for change, and we don't have to always wait for people to change things for us. Why can't we decide to be that solution to a problem instead of waiting for the solution to come to us? And so at the end, it talks about how change lives inside of the little girl who is the main character in the story, and how she goes around and she's helping people. She's doing all of these things for other people in her community, and she's being a helping hand and showing how, even as young as you are, there are things that you can do to help be a helping hand to someone else and be the change that you want to see in the world. And I thought that this was a beautiful book. I think this is another one that I'm going to share with my kids, and we might even do like a little writing. And actually, we're doing how-to writing this week, so this might be the perfect book to do it. I think that I would read this book, and then for our how-to writing, we could be how we could make a change in the world. So I just came up with that, and I think I'm going to do that one this week. So reading this book called Change Things, and then doing a how-to writing on how to make a change in the world, how to make a positive impact on our community. So I would definitely recommend this book. It was alright. So this next book by LeBron James, I Promise. I think that honestly, these two could kind of go hand in hand, Change Things and then I Promise, because they have very similar themes. So, and I Promise is just talking about all of these kids in this picture book and all the things that they promise to do to be good citizens, good community members, good helpers in their community, and how they promise to themselves that they're going to be a good leader to make positive change and positive impact in their area. And one of the things that I love the most is that on the very last page it says, I promise to be me. And y'all, hopefully I do not get in trouble for showing these pictures, but I promise to be me. And I think that especially for my class, a lot of the kids are pressured into doing things that they don't want to do. They're growing in my class. They're very mature for their age. They do things that they shouldn't all the time, and sometimes they don't make the right decisions. And so I think that this is a great book, maybe even to read in the same week as this book, Change Things, and just showing how we all need to be leaders. And I tell them all the time, stop being a follower, be a leader. I tell them that all the time, and I think that this is going to hone into what I've been trying to tell them all along, and that if they want to see change, in the world, they're going to have to make a promise, not only to themselves, but to others, to be good people, to be good leaders, to be good examples for what it's supposed to be a child being a leader in their community, so that not only can they make a positive impact, but they can also inspire people that are their same age, younger than them, and older than them as well. And so I think LeBron James did a wonderful job with this book, along with the author, and just putting it in simple, plain terms for a child to understand, and how making promises to yourself to do the right thing has a positive impact, whether it's now or in the future. Right, so this very last book that I'm going to share with you is called I Believe I Can by Grace Byers. She's actually one of the cast members on Empire. She was married to Andre, I think his name was, like the oldest one. I used to watch Empire, so I'm pretty sure that's who she was married to. I think that was his name, Andre. And so she wrote this book called I Believe I Can. And actually, I was almost about to say the other name because I knew her name looked familiar, because she also wrote the book I Am Enough, which is an empowerment book for young girls. And this book right here is dedicated to all kids, not just girls. And so just a little bit about her. It says that she is a multicultural, biracial, coded child, well, was a coded child, and that just means that her that she's a child of deaf adults. That's what it says here. And it just says that she was bullied throughout her life, and how now she's creating books that hopefully inspire other people and encourage other kids to, overcome different things, and to believe that they can be enough for the world that they live in. And so this book here, well, honestly, these all have like very similar things about empowering yourself, encouraging yourself, and motivating yourself to be a good citizen, to be a good role model, to be a good example, not only to prove to yourself that you can do it, but also to prove to other people and be a leader, not a follower, just like the other two books that I mentioned earlier. And one of the things that I like is how it talks about how, like in many children's books, how you can do anything if you set your mind to anything that you want to accomplish. You can do it. Work hard, do the right things, set your mind on something, set goals, and accomplish them. But it also talks about, towards the latter part of the book, about how we make mistakes. We do things sometimes that maybe we shouldn't. Things in our life don't always pan out the way that we want them to. But that doesn't mean that we have less value, doesn't mean that we have less worth, but we use those as opportunities to learn, to grow, and then to move forward, knowing what to or not to do in the future. And so one of my favorite parts in this book was, it says, "My presence matters in this world. My life is worthy. There's a plan. I know I can do anything if only I believe I can." And I think that would be a great mantra just to have in my classroom, where we're just reminding ourselves every morning when we come in that I matter, my life is important or is worthy, there's a plan for me, and that if there's anything that's in my mind to, I can accomplish it. And so realizing that there's a voice inside of all of us. We all have a purpose in this world, and some of us, like I believe in God, and I believe that we all have a purpose in this world, and how we're all called to do things. And regardless of what happens in our lives, no matter what struggles may arise or experiences we may face, that if only we believe in ourselves, we can get through all of those things and hopefully inspire other people to do the same thing. So I hope you enjoyed those 5 books that I shared with you today. And my next video, or the one afterwards, I'm going to share 5 more books that I plan on displaying or sharing with my kids, and hopefully encourage you to share Black History Month with your students, whether you have the demographic or not, and really show what empowerment and encouragement looks like. Because the only way that we are going to make this world a better place is if we shed some light on each other's experiences, encourage each other, motivate each other, and not tear each other down. So I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.